Hi everyone, welcome to another EAStalk webinar. Today with us is Asbjørn Drengstig, CEO of Norwegian Lobster Farm AS, and he will give a presentation on They Said It Was Impossible, the story behind Norwegian Lobster Farm AS. Asbjørn Drengstig is marine biologist and has for the last 20 years been involved in skill enhancement projects, development of RAS technologies, and the commercialization of new species worldwide. His focus is to develop sustainable farming concepts for the future and closing the value chain for new species within a profitable structure. Through his career, he has been managing EU R&D, development aid, and commercial projects in more than 20 countries around the globe. He has published several scientific reports, magazine articles, and peer-reviewed articles. Norwegian Lobster Farm became the first company succeeding with land-based lobster farming, including supply to high-end market segments. The company is now ready for industrial growth based on unique scalable technology. My name is Anna Viskovic, and today I will moderate this webinar. It will last for 45 minutes with 30 minutes of presentation time and 15 minutes for questions and answers. During the presentation, you can send me your questions, and I will make sure that they are addressed afterwards. So you can also discuss directly with Asbjørn, but please let me know in the message if you would prefer to have your microphone unmuted. Dear Asbjørn, many thanks for accepting the invitation to present a webinar about your farm. We are looking forward to hear everything that you want to share today with us. So please feel free to go forward with your presentation.
Thank you so much. My name is Asbjørn Drengstig. I have been involved with this baby of mine for more than 20 years. And I will guide you through the history of the company and our plan for the future. We have, since the beginning, collaborated with a lot of R&D institutes and lobster companies in Europe, trying to form networks and also to disseminate knowledge in terms of generating know-how to the public about lobster farming and the possibilities that this industry can provide for the European community. We have a board which we are strengthening these days also, and we have 7 employees with a broad competence base which is complementary. So we have people involved in biology, automation, robotics, technology, and everything. So we are quite strong in terms of having a specialized know-how connected to the land-based lobster farming. Our history began in 2000, where we started to build our research and knowledge base. At that time, there was not much knowledge about what the lobster's requirements were for having them in aquaculture from egg to plate size. So we worked for 4 years with the University of Stavanger, the Marine Research Institute in Bergen, and different research institutes in Norway to develop knowledge that was required for our business concept. In 2004, we built the first pilot and did a small-scale piloting stage where we documented some of the key features of technology that was proven to be successful for scale-up. In 2008, we were raising money to scale up production, but in 2008, the financial crisis came. So the capital became very expensive, and it was a very difficult time to get investors on board. In 2009, we started the first semi-commercial production, and did that for 1 year before we entered into the market segment and had a successful market penetration for our product. We supplied and tested our product in culinary institutes, at high-end restaurants and also Michelin restaurants with very good feedback. But in 2011 we had a disastrous fire, lost all values overnight. That was a quite challenging time for us because we didn't have a lot of money and we were ready to scale up on the basis that we had. So the years after 2011 was more or less focusing on avoiding bankruptcy and trying to revitalize the company based on the good experience we had on the downstream revenue chain. So in 2016 we revamped the company because we was awarded a EU-funded Eurostar project, which we completed in 2018. In 2019 we were awarded a Horizon 2020 project, and before Christmas we was awarded another Eurostar project for the juvenile hatchery setup to fully automate the hatchery. So at present, closing the vault and securing our IP in order to scale up production and increasing the value chain of lobster farming in Norway and in Europe. Our R&D background is of course wide and broad. We needed to investigate all elements of the value chain in order to understand how we are going to scale the company. Our product is was not known in the market, so in order to have feedback on quality, pricing, volumes, etc., we were forced to produce lobster and supply, and then to get reviews afterwards. So we did a lot of basic R&D for many years. And that was, of course, to understand everything, egg to plate, to end customer. So this company is a true value chain innovation. And when you control the value chain, you can also foresee volumes in future and also be able to supply end customers on a regular basis. And we are also focusing on superior quality. And we are generating a higher revenue based on the quality that we are able to produce. So when we first started out, nobody knew much about the biology or the requirements for the lobster in contained environments. So we did a lot of different trials with feeding diets, pelleted diets. We need to see, since this is a cubical technology, the less size of the cube, the more it will be. So we studied when the compartment size inhibited growth. So we could determine what size we should transfer to a new and bigger cube, thereby optimizing the production chain in our facility. We also did a lot of different communal trials because it should be more easy to have more of them in the same compartment and not keep them in single cages. But every time we tried doing that, we ended up with only one lobster at the end. So the circular tank here, divided in 4, we had 50 lobsters in each, and by the end of the trial there was only 4 left, 1 in each compartment. And we also did a test on the plastic material. You can see on the bottom right. They used it for crayfish in Egypt and Israel, and we bought the items and we tried to do the same as they did, but we ended up with only 1 lobster left. And also the feed was a little difficult because there was no available feed that had the requirements for the nutritional needs for the lobster. So we bought off-the-shelf feeds for salmon, for shrimp, for halibut, and tried and tested if the lobster would eat the different diets. But the only pellet the lobster would take was the one that they supplied to the cod farming industry in Norway at that time. But that pellet is for a whitefish. So the longer we fed the lobsters, the more pale they got. So for every molt, they would get more and more pale, and at the end, they could actually be transparent. You can see the intestines. So at that time, we needed to reverse that and add astaxanthin in coloration to the shell. So in this period, we learned a lot. In 2004, we took out a patent in 23 countries, all countries with sea and possible for lobster facilities. And based on that patent, we did the first piloting in 2005 to 2006, with where we had a conveyor belt system where the lobster rotated vertically in the water column. And what we found out in the initial stage is that if you lift the lobster out of water and into air, the lobster, if they are beginning to molt or in the molt or recently after the molt, there's a high mortality if you lift them out of water. So that's why you can see the upper cage is still submerged, half cage is submerged, so you can so the lobster is underwater, but we can see it with computer vision from the top. And this was I think 3 years before the smartphone, so we were digitalizing the production quite early. After the first piloting, we did a bigger installation where we wanted to validate the terms for a semi-commercial production. In this stage, we became rather famous, I think. We got in most magazines in Europe, TV, national TVs, a lot of visitors and a lot of interest. So here we revealed the bottlenecks in terms of doing a semi-scale production. And when the validation was done, and we were secure that we could initiate the production of a certain level, we started that in 2009. And at the same time, we started developing a live gene bank. That is, we had 350 different breeders, which we genetically marked, so we can know which one is the mother and father, and we could also trace the offspring in terms of performance in our system. And we were tracing on survival and growth, especially, also a little bit on FCR at that time. So that was a quite interesting period for us, and at this farm here, we were able to operate it on a remote basis. So you could actually control everything from India or Europe or whatever, but you had full control over the whole production with an HMI, a human-man interface. So we solved a lot of the major bottlenecks during that period, and the major advancements was in biology and genetics, technology and feed, and automation and robots. So since they are cannibalistics, where they need single compartments, and to be able to manage this in a large scale, you need to have advanced robotic system. But in 2011, in May, there was a disaster in the farm where the whole farm burned down to the ground. So from that day on, we lost all the values we had generated overnight, including the gene bank. So that was a very, very sad period of our life, and it was a severe setback for us because we were ready to scale up, and now we were set back. So our farming concept, talked a little bit about it, but they are cannibals, highly cannibalistic. So you cannot keep two lobsters in one compartment. So you need single cages, And we also found that the growth was significantly increased if we kept 20 degrees. So if to keep 20 degrees, you need to recirculate the water in terms of reducing the energy costs. So that's why we are using moving bed biofilter and a recirculating system where we recirculate 95% of the water volume in the tank. We have been able to successfully feed juveniles with the pellet from day one. We don't have the same growth rate and survival, but we have been able to produce quite a few lobsters based on a pelleted feed alone. So you can see on the picture, when the lobster is 2 centimeters, they can easily engage in a 5 millimeter pellet and try to eat it. Our business concept and the possibilities. Our product is quite unique. It's a portion-sized lobster, so it's an undersized product. It's 20 centimeters and 300 grams. And on the top picture, you can see the molting occurring in a very, very small cage. So that was quite a turning point for us when we saw that they were able to molt in quite small space. We have developed a unique know-how on land-based ROS system in order to produce lobsters, and all the technologies we have developed, they have been highly modular. So if you're going to expand a cubicle technology, you have to also think of the modality, so you can increase in a modular basis. So now, currently, we have an industrial pilot in operation and under validation, and we are also a business case that inhabits a lot of possible expansions and exit strategies for investors. And so far as we know, we are the only company in the world who has succeeded with this, which proves that this kind of production holds a high threshold for success. So, in terms of having portion-sized lobster, which is undersized and in fact an illegal product in the market, because if you're going to have lobsters on the menu, you have to get it from the wild population. And from the wild population, you have a minimum size before it's legal to catch in the pens. So our product is below that size. So we have quite a unique product in terms of size, quality, and texture. And that was also revealed when we entered into the market segment. We were quite we didn't know what price we could expect from the customers, but we proved to have we doubled the price from our budgets, and it became a hit in several market segments. There has been a few analyses on the market potential, but we aim to produce an industrial scale production of 1,000 tons, and maybe the global market is more than 100 times bigger than that. But as we see it now, we are in front of a tremendous opportunity where we have a global monopoly on the technology, the product, and also the know-how. And there is no direct comparison, since what I said, this is an undersized product. And when we did the culinary testing, we also revealed that this texture of this undersized lobster was quite different than the legal lobster in the market, because the legal market, they have undergone maturation, and the chefs said that it's like cow and calf meat. So this is a calf meat which is more moist and softer and have a higher delicacy than wild-caught lobsters. And also when we did the semi-commercial production, we also saw that when we were able to increase supply, we also increased the price, mainly due to the fact that we could foresee and guarantee deliveries in the future for the restaurants. And for the general trends, based on the depleted wild stocks in Europe, the trends for the market is decreasing supply and increasing price. And also, at least in Scandinavia, there's a tendency that the smaller the lobster gets, the higher the price you can receive, also from the wild lobsters. So from the gourmet journey we did, we thought that we had an undersized lobster which is smaller than the wild, so we thought maybe this was a main dish where the lobster was served as a whole lobster as the main dish. But these chefs, they desiccated the whole lobster, and they used all the different parts in different dishes. So they used the lobster in a different way than we expected, and they used all parts of it. And we did testing on Noma Kitchen in Copenhagen, which was the world's best restaurant at the time, and also the high-end restaurants and famous chefs in Norway. So now we are conducting two EU projects. One is Horizon 2020, and the new one is under the Eurostar umbrella. It's called Automaris and AutoHatch. So this is our facility. It's located close to Stavanger, 1 hour from Stavanger, where we are having this the pilot demonstration. So our plan is to complete the EU-funded projects, and when we are completed with the EU-funded projects, we are ready to scale up. Then we have validated and that this can be done at industrial levels. So what we are doing now, we are testing all features and aspects of the technologies in an industrial setting, but the biomass is of course not industrial, but if you're going to scale up this production, it will be a different scenario than we know from, for instance, fish farming, and I will get back to that. But we aim to produce this product and target Michelin and high-end restaurants. And we are now currently seeking for strategic partners for supporting us to scale up to industrial production. So the scaling and the modularity in this technology, it's not like you scale up a fish cage where you can double or triple the amount of fish in one cage based on a bigger fish cage. But we, as a cubicle technology, we are upnumbering. So the technology we are validating now is based on that each single cage is self-supported. So if one cage works, 2 cages works, 10,000 cages work, and 1 million cages works precisely the same. So we are upnumbering the amount of cages in a different way than normal scale-up in aquaculture. And we plan to be completed with the validation by the end of this year. And we want to have a commercial establishment in 22, initially with 100-ton production, and then scaling up to 2,000 tons. And when we do that, it will be in modules. So 1,000 tons will be 10 100-ton modules, and that is to secure, have a higher biosecurity in terms of having production facilities which are independent of each other, but in the same area. So that's why we are trying to reduce any biological hiccups when we are scaling. We are planning to invest approximately 2.5 million euros the next 18 months. We have secured financing for that. and we are targeting 30 to 40 million euro in investments from 22 and to 25. To sum up, in my mind, this is one of the few high-tech automated seafood production systems we have. We control all aspects of the value chain, also downstream. There's a market pull worldwide for this product. It's in high demand, high price, and when you reach commercial volumes, you will have a favorable profit margin in terms of this unique product. We control as best as we can the different biological risk. There's not many diseases we know, but we know some diseases will come. So that's why we are mitigating the biological risk by having compartments with the production setups. And we want to have expansion across Europe, close to metropoles, so you have a low carbon footprint and you're close to market, and you can have a very smooth logistic chain and also save costs downstream when you supply to market. So this is Innovation Norway, 12 years back. It says in Norwegian, they said it was impossible. On the pictures you see it is possible. We did it. We did proof of the pudding and proof of concept once. We are doing it now twice. A better foundation, a more secure technology, and better modular scalability. So now we have even higher control over each single lobster. And that is mainly due to the image processing that we use, that we are able to have information from each single lobster every day through camera monitoring and computer vision. So we see if it's dead or alive. We can see the growth rate, we can see the molting frequency, and we can also determine the last molting before harvest, so we can allow the necessary time for the lobster to fill the body with meat. Because when they molt, they expand the shell with filling up the body with seawater, and they need a certain time in order to restore everything with meat. So that's why we can be 100% secure that the product we supply will have a high quality and will be filled with exclusive lobster meat. So thank you for your attention, and hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Asbjørn. We enjoyed a lot your presentation, and we are looking forward to hear what are your next plans in the future for the lobster farming. So I'm opening now the question and answer section, and I will start with the first question. So Chen Offer asked, what is the salinity they can grow in?
The salinity should be between 30 and 34. Not less than 30.
Let me just also say something to the participants. So if you would like to ask your question directly to Asbjørn, I can unmute your microphone. So please mention that in the message. I will start now with my second question. So Patrick Sorgos is asking, have you had problems with off flavor?
No. Not at all. What we do is we have a mechanical screening filter after the biofilter. So the bacterial growth that is being generated of the biofilter will be removed in the mechanical screening filter. So the water coming into the cages is crystal clear.
Okay, thank you, Asbjørn. The next question is from Sarah Perche. How long does it take to lobster to reach the under commercial size?
That's a valid point. I forgot to mention that. In nature, it takes 5 to 6 years. If you are able to contain 20 degrees, it's on average 24 months, but highly depending on the mother or father. So we have been able to produce in 18 months, but we have also produced in 36 months.
Yeah, but that's a huge difference.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's why you need a genetic or a breeding program where you start taking out the best broodstock and to get the highest survival and growth of the offspring.
Okay, thank you. Now I have a question from Jeanette. I will unmute Jeanette. Hi, Jeanette.
Hi, it's Janet Brown. I was just quite surprised that you said that the work started in 2000, because there was a tremendous amount of work done on lobster culture in the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
And one of the things, actually, Dave Aiken did some work on how the size of the cage inhibited growth. And I was just wondering if you've got that lobster that's just hardly able to move in the cage, what the difference would be if its growth wasn't inhibited by the very small size of the cage.
You're referring to the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when the lobster was that was the feeding position you saw. So when the feeding was done, they had a surface area of 20 by 30 centimeters, but it was only in the top feeding position.
Well, the picture is the one with the animal is just molted.
Yes, that cage was in a feeding position. So it was standing like a shoebox, but it was standing upside down. So when the lobster got the feed, it rotated and turned, and then the shoebox was in a normal shoebox position. So you had a bigger surface area to feed and to live.
Okay, I'm just wondering to what extent you were aware of the publications that were available beforehand.
Yeah, we are quite aware of most of the literature before we started, but there was a lot of things in the literature that not necessarily was the truth. so we did a lot of testing. Somebody told us that the lobster will never go from one side of the sea and go on a dry on a rock, for instance, and pass over to another side to get to the sea, because it will always maintain or try to be submerged. But the lobster, for us, they crawled everywhere. So we did a lot of testing. We also there was a book from '76 or something with the crustacean nutrition. So we had a close link to the scientific research that was done, but we wanted to make sure that everything was adapted to our understanding and our need. So we were trying to make the biology fit a technology that could be financially sustainable.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Asbjørn. The next question we have is from Gavin. Will the production of juveniles will be a bottleneck if you rely on wild-caught parrot females?
Depends on the scale. For our initial plans, it will not be a bottleneck, but you need to improve the survival in the incubators. You need to get a more robust juvenile. So that is a development work that we are targeting in the AutoHatch EU project, where we need to improve the survival based on reducing the number of breeders that we need. But at current we are just collecting a lot of wild-caught breeders, and we hatch them, and we are able to scale up to at least a few hundred tons without any obstacles. But of course it's our target to improve also the survival.
Thank you, Asbjørn. The next one is from Adrian. Are you planning to expand throughout Europe by franchising or direct?
Well, it all depends. It can be a franchise, it could be joint venture, it can be our own expansion. It all depends on the capital structure of the company. But I think some sort of joint venture or a franchise will be one of the targeted solutions for expansion.
Okay, thank you. Similar question from Alistair Lane. So he asked, have you already thought about other sites in other countries where you might invest? And have you already thought about, that was the question. And also, have you restarted the gene bank?
We will start a new gene bank now. So now we have now numbered the juveniles, now the breeders, and we will take genetic samples from them during the next year. So we will start. We need to start that kind of activity. So in terms of the bottlenecks for scaling up to maybe more than 1,000 tons, is of course juvenile survival and feed development and genetic improvement. That is the three things that is important for us to improve. And we have been looking for other sites. We have done actually a lot of different projects, also with the Danish Technical University. We had a project on Iceland where we tried to use geothermal heat. And we also had, we produced lobster in the mountains outside Madrid in artificial seawater. So that was on 1,000 meters above sea level, and we hatched around 10,000 juveniles and produced them up to 10 centimeters size. And then I ran out of money, so I needed to close that project, but it was successful even in the high mountains in artificial seawater. You can establish this kind of production.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So do you plan to do something similar in the future?
Well, I think it should take the easy route first, and Europe has a tremendous long coastline, so there are major opportunities in many countries, but first we need now to validate our new technology and robotic solution, and then to more have commercial or industrial production going in Norway, and then scaling in Europe after that.
Thank you, Asbjørn. The next one is from Steen. Is there intersexual different growth rate?
Not sure. We did some experiments with seeing females and males, but that is for us kind of a optimization you do when you have more or less the groundwork under control. So of course that might be, but I have no statistical data of saying yes or no. Maybe somebody else has. There's a lot of different lobster competence around, so maybe somebody else knows.
Okay, the next one is from Audrey Tuzan. How do you treat the water? Do you use the UV light or ozone treatment to treat the water?
We don't use ozone. We use UV and screening and biofilter. And we also use that in the different loops. So on the intake and in the loops.
Okay, the next one is from Gamze Turan. He said, congratulations, excellent work and presentation, thank you so much. But the question from Renata is, can the pale coloration of lobster reared on pellets that be on pellets be reverted by feeding them natural feed? For example, krill for a short period of time.
Yes, you can. But we want to be independent of live or fresh food. We need to have accurate number of pellets going into the cage in order to avoid overfeeding and deterioration of the water quality. So we want to target pellet feeding. When the lobster are small, we are feeding maybe 3 or 4 pellets of millimeter size for each cage. So it's a precision feeding in each of the cages. But of course, if you add krill in the pellet, that of course reflects on the coloration of the lobster.
Thank you, Asbjørn. The next one is from Ashi Norris. What are the main pathogens which are a threat to lobster farming?
Well, to my knowledge, there's been some I think it's some kind of fungus on the breeders, on the eggs, and we know that's a bacteria called Gafkemia that is a carrier for the American lobster, but it's lethal for the European lobster. But we have yet to date not experienced any diseases or bacteria or viruses in our production. But we think it will come. So, but we are not sure which one.
Thank you, Asbjørn. The next one we have is from Adrian Feiler. Do you have issue with environmentalists that don't consider growing lobster in a small containment as inhuman?
Of course, there's always some skeptical in terms of like farming chicken or farming them in a contained environment. But my answer is always, we do it to preserve themselves. We protect the lobster by keeping them separately. Otherwise, the animal welfare will be critical.
Yes, that's true. The next one is from Eric. Is the newly hatched lobster able to feed directly on pellets, or do you grow phytoplankton to feed them in the beginning?
They are able to feed pellet from day one, but as I think I said, the survival is not as high as natural feed. So we feed with frozen and live Artemia, and also we have used the feed from planktonic, which has a good effect on survival and the coloration of the juveniles. But they are able, if you can have a pellet with a correct nutritional content, it's possible to start feeding them from scratch with a pellet feed.
That's good. The next one is from James. What are your survival rates from hatching to PL?
That again depends. I would say average maybe 10. But it all depends. So Asbjørn,
we had some cutting in the network, so please repeat it.
Sorry?
I didn't hear your answer. Can you repeat the answer?
Okay, I said it all depends, again, on the mother and father, but on average I would say 10% survival.
Okay, thank you. The next one is from Sarah Perche. What is your end-of-pipe treatment? Do you denitrification? Do you have denitrification tank, for example?
No, we don't. We steer the recirculation according to the values we get on nitrogen. So we add backup water 5 to 6, 7%, and then it's within acceptable limits.
And I will just like to remind you all that you have time maybe for one or two more questions before we end this question and answer section. My next question will be from Clary. Is the goal to remain a high-volume product / gourmet food item, or is there interested in expanding the market towards, say, more accessible consumer markets such as supermarkets?
Well, we hope that one day it will be accessible in supermarkets, but for the limited production, in our mind, 1,000 metric tons, it sounds tremendously big, but compared to other species, it's not so big production. But in order to just satisfy high-end consumers, we need to go further than 1,000 tons in order to get it accessible in the supermarkets, and the price will of course also go down. So we need to maximize our price in the market and seek for the correct for the product.
Thank you, Asbjørn. This was also our last question. So in case you want to ask more questions to Asbjørn, he left his email address, so you can email him directly, or you can email me and then I will forward an email to Asbjørn. But I can see that we have a question from Alistair Lane. He's asking, is all sold live?
Yes.
Yes.
All live. Yes. So we that was also a challenge because Norway is a seafood nation. But mainly we do salted, dried, fresh, frozen. So when you entered into the live seafood supply, then it was quite challenging. So we needed to monitor every shipment. So it was not stuck in Copenhagen or in transfer, or so you can transport lobster for at least 48 hours without any concerns, and then you have quite a distance you can travel in 48 hours. So it's no problem to sell them live.
Thank you. We have also a question from Ivar Lund. Estimated production cost to 300 gram size.
Again, a good question. Well, our previous system, which you saw, the conveyor belt system, if you remove all the R&D costs that you cannot capitalize on, the production cost was around 190 NOK, so that will be 19 euros. And we had a price of 300 NOK, which will be around 27 euros, 26, 27. But the lobster we sold got 50 euro plus per kilo farm gate. So now we are recalculating the production cost based on the validation period we are going through now. But you have a margin.
That's good, Asbjørn. Thank you very much. So I would like to close now the question and answer section. It was really informative and with a lot of questions. So many thanks, Asbjørn, to answering on each of the questions. I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation and to share everything about the Norwegian Lobster Farm. I would like to thank you all for participating in our webinar, and video will be posted online soon. Our next webinar will take place on March 2nd with Tom Scrope from NovaQ LLC, our corporate member. So this will be also our first EAStalk webinar with one of the corporate members of the EAS. Tom will give a presentation on refocusing RAS operations attention on many roles the microbiota play in healthy recirculating systems. The registration link for this webinar you will receive in the follow-up email. Many thanks to you all today, and thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Many thanks, Asbjørn.